Gents, finally video le gents. I'm outside train or cherry one.
Oh, la poison. Let me check it quick. Let me send it food.
When Antoine, don't you want to Donna?
Nah, boy, I'm good. I'm crying already. Yeah? This guy, come on. This is an epic movie, Baba. Plus, when Sababo cheer,
Buddy, have you ever even kissed a girl, dog?
Well, nah,
French
have you?
kiss, Nyana. Yeah, dog, you know almost. Chicks love me, dog. I'm the Casanova. Donna Nyabaja, like what get Nyabaja, you know.
Plus, you, bro, you're a virgin at your age. Come on, that is not right. At your age, come on, that is not right. Come on.
Donna, you know this chick, Donna, she'll hook you up, and Donna, she'll ride you nice.
Oh, la poison.
Ride you so nice, bro. Dog, do you know what? I'm your friend. Uyimpinchako singama gang esihlangene. We'll hook you up. Chero nice nje, or fresh.
In February, we woke to the news of 17-year-old Anine Boyson, who was brutally raped, mutilated, and left for dead in her hometown of Bredasdorp in the Western Cape. Now, this is not something new, South Africa. It's been happening. And the question is, why are the numbers not going down? In fact, they're escalating. Just last year, 17-year-old Sowetan girl was gang raped, and her alleged perpetrators are between the ages of 14 and 20. A child is raped every 3 minutes in South Africa, and we are known as the world rape capital. In 2000 alone, we saw the highest number of child and baby rapes, where 67,000 of them were actually reported. So the question is, what happens when children rape other children? Why are our children doing things like this? Where are they learning it from? Are we breeding a society of criminals?
Maybe and Baba Enza so mama, so they try to practice because they're still young. They want to experiment, basically. They want to see what's going to happen, which is wrong. You know what I mean? I think everything boils up to family, like how you're brought up.
It's their parents. These kids, they see it from mommy and daddy, and then they want to go practice it there. It's wrong. You need to do it in a closed room, in private.
Yeah, I think we should go because like those young children are the future of our country. It's really hating. So I think like our South African police was only was threatening like when it comes to that, they mustn't have any mercy towards that.
As parents, we should sit with our children, teach them, and we have to protect them from these people. And we should encourage and pray for our children to be Christians, to be born again.
And I also think it's also based on our cell phones. There's advanced cell phones also have, whereby kids can download anything in their phones, and whereby now they putting their passwords, and parents wouldn't know what's in their phones, or wouldn't be able to have access in their phones. That's what
I think it's all just peer pressure and drug abuse from our teenagers, because a lot of things happen in high school these days. So all of it is just based on peer pressure and drug abuse.
There's girls of today. Hey, there's girls, they're walking around with short shorts and stuff in the street. But obvious, what they gonna do? What does it do with the guys? What do you say, Manskap?
Yeah, okay. Guys also like come from bad homes also, you know, like, yeah, doing wrong things, you know, drugs, smoking, all that, yeah. certain, like, how can I say, things happen. You know, when you're a guy and a girl wears a short skirt, you think a lot of things in your mind. You think, yeah, seriously, yeah, it's true. You think a lot of things. Yeah.
But thinking a lot of things doesn't mean you must do. Why can't these guys control themselves?
It gives you bad intentions.
So if she's wearing a miniskirt and she says no, but he forces her. Why? Is that right?
Obvious. Why are you walking around with a miniskirt?
It's my constitutional right to walk around in a miniskirt, whether I'm 2 or 16.
But still, it's turning a guy on. And maybe you can find this guy is not nice, he's not good in his head, and you're turning him on. Then obvious, he's gonna do his own things.
We take these kids.
Atoke se ikgutla re tjhakela fight with insight emane Teddy Bear Clinic re ithute hanyane ka molao wa bana wa toka ho latella ditsebi di rerolla ditaba tse bohlokwa.
If we do not address that at an earlier age, they grow up thinking it's normal, it's okay, I can get away with it.
The Child Justice Act 75 of 2008 states that a child under the age of 10 lacks criminal capacity and should not be tried in a court of law unless it can be proven that they can distinguish between right and wrong. It's also recommended that they not be tried in a court of law so they don't end up with a criminal record. But what happens when a child does commit a crime and they have a run-in with the law but cannot be tried in the court of law? Well, that's what places like Fight with Insight are for. It's a boxing project where young offenders are referred by the courts as part of a diversion program.
I didn't mean to. I don't want to go to jail. You don't want to go to jail. I made a mistake, but I found help. So can you.
The girl said I had touched a private part, so my parents brought me here.
When children commit sexual offences against other children, this is one of the most difficult balancing requirements that we have in child law, because obviously here both the offender is a child and the victim is a child, and so one has to be thinking about both of their interests. Now I think most people understand that child victims of sexual offences have to be treated with the utmost care and that their needs and their interests are a priority for the justice system. But we can't just throw out the child offender's childhood. He or she remains a child even when they do things wrong. We have to continue to understand that they are not fully developed human beings yet, and so they will make errors, and we need to make sure that our response to them aims at improving them if possible and not writing them off.
I didn't do it, and it made me feel like I was uncomfortable. I don't understand why did I have to come here.
Once these kids have gone through the court process, they are handed over to us, where we take these kids and we put them through a 12-week diversion program, and we sort of show them what's right and wrong. And then once they've done that, at the same time they get placed into alternative activities, and one of them is boxing, and that's where I come in and I teach them 4 principles regarding life, which are first impressions, consequence to action, compassion, and moving forward positively after this scenario.
I came here because I knew that I just had to come. I didn't like the place, but as time went by, I grew fond of it. Then I came better.
I'll do it. Come here.
Some of the lessons Anton taught us, it's respect and, as I said, compassion. It helps you learn how to respect others, whether it's your opponent, your teacher, or your friends, and show a little bit of compassion.
So let's line up here. Take your gloves off. We're not going to do it with gloves on. We're going to do it without the gloves on, okay?
There is obviously a lot of sexual experimentation amongst peers, which sometimes goes too far and becomes frightening for one of the children, and this can also lead to a charge of sexual abuse. So one of the things that one looks at is, for example, what is the age difference between the two children, because the bigger that age difference is, the more likely is that you're looking at a real sexual offence. And the closer in age they are, the more you have to consider the possibility that it was sexual experimentation that went wrong. But the facts of each case will determine this. It's not as though there's a hard and fast rule that you can stick to.
I have this friend, Bushle. I like her so much, but I was never able to tell her. The day I decided to go do it, I wasn't thinking straight. My friends just always thought I was stupid, and I wanted to prove them wrong. But I never took the time to consider her feelings. Bushle, she'll never want to see me again. Don't rape.
Initially it started out as a pilot and we wanted to see if it would work. 6 years down the road we've had massive success, so we do know it works, and the follow-on project teaching these kids boxing, there's many benefits to it. Let's go, Reg. Welcome back to boxing. Let's go. 10 push-ups. 1, 7, 8, 9. Boxing is all about honor. So they learn to greet people properly. Their whole first impression is quite a big thing. And once they do that, we teach them the basics of boxing. We empower them. A lot of these kids feel disempowered and they act out on that. And we're able to empower them and make them feel better about themselves. At the same time, we teach them that there's consequence to action. So whenever they do something, be it late for school or early for school, whatever, there's a positive or a negative consequence. Some kids are stronger than others. And when they get to that conflict section where one kid's carrying what have you, then we've got to show the compassion, and the kid backs off and what have you, because it's a teammate and there's an equal love and respect for each other, you know. So that we've got to teach them to do that, because initially when they come here, they've got a very aggressive nature, and so we've got to bring that about.
If a child doesn't complete the diversion program as a result of a fault of his or her own, then it's very likely the child will end up back in the criminal justice system and will have to face the charge and will then get a criminal record. Of course, there might be circumstances that are beyond the child's control. For example, if they don't have bus fare to get to the diversion program, or their parents didn't take them, or whatever. So one has to have an inquiry as to what was the reason. But it is understood, and it's an important feature of diversion, that if you don't do it properly, then you will be back in the criminal justice system.
It actually became apparent to us that we need to start looking at kids from a preventative measure, kids that are in line to become criminal elements and what have you. And so we've decided to adopt kids possibly that would be getting into a crime situation in the future. So the project is expanding, but essentially for the last 6 years it's only worked through the court system. But basically, if we bring on more boxing gyms to facilitate this type of training, then this project could expand. And if you look at, there's 250 boxing gyms in the country. If each gym looked after 10 kids, that's 2,500 kids a month that'll be looked after in projects. So that's what I'm aiming at, and expanding the project to that sort of extent.
Moahi wa setjhaba bekeng ena ke Anton Gilmore bakeng sa mosebetsi wa hae le diversion program. Se lebale ho kopana le rona Facebookung kapa re romelle maikutlo a lona ho 33120.
What do you think is the solution? Are we looking after our boy child?
Ha re khutla ke rona bao kitchening moho le aya le bakgotsi ba hae.
I'm happy you raised this. We do not invest sufficiently on raising the boy child.
Okay.
And it's important to do this in this country.
welcome back. You're watching Talk SA. Now, there's a great lack of knowledge and practical theory when it comes to the issue of children who rape other children. And the statistics on Childline state that 50% of the calls that they receive are from children reporting incidents where they've been sexually abused by other children. And get this, only 1 in 9 incidents of rape are actually reported. So, South Africa, when are we going to stop treating sexual talk as taboo and actually engage in this issue? In order to help us unpack it in the studio, we've got Mbuti Mbuyiselo Botha, and he is from Sisonke Gender Justice, as well as Sisi Remembrance, and she is from NICRO, and they're going to help us unpack it. So tell me, the research says that rape has got a direct link to socioeconomic issues. In your experience and opinion, is that true?
Well, there's a measure of truth in that it does have, there's a relationship. I mean, issues of inequality, issues of poverty, which impacts directly, issues of unemployment, all of them. But we must state that there's really no excuse. There is an explanation, but no excuse, no justification to fully say that these conditions would necessarily lead to rape, but they're important variables if we need to understand why does rape happen in the country and throughout the world. Yeah.
And then, as somebody who works with, previous child offenders, what do you think are the reasons why they commit these crimes?
When we talk about this topic and in relation to children, it's a whole discussion on its own. The term itself, in terms of rape and talking about children, we need to be very careful when we refer to that. But my experience in the work that we do, yes, we do get referrals for child sexual offenders. And when we unpack it, you've touched on the issues of socio-economic dynamics in our societies. Yes, there is no excuse, but children are growing up, they're still developing, they experience different issues, they act out in different manner. So without really labeling that as rape, when we talk of of children, I would rather say children that get involved in sexual offending behavior, and then getting referrals of that. But we need to be very careful when we talk about rape and children in how we unpack it.
Is that not maybe one of the issues in terms of, as much as there are children, but do we not, by protecting them so much and by, for instance, not incarcerating and having other programs, do they not, yes, as much as, we do work towards rehabilitation, but do they not then grow up to, in the back of their minds, think maybe this isn't as bad, and then grow up to become the men that rape and mutilate them?
Yeah. What you've said about not having this topic as a taboo in our society, openly discussing it from as young as the early age of these children. They need to be able to come up to the parents, to the caregivers, and talk openly about what they experience, what they don't understand, and we need to openly sit down with them and empower them with skills to understand the sexual behavior, the appropriate and inappropriate sexual behavior at their level. We cannot excuse it and say they are children, therefore they do not rape or they cannot rape other children. However, we need to sit down and talk openly about issues of sexuality with our children. We as parents, as caregivers, as professionals, we need to empower these children as young as possible so that they can be able to exhibit appropriate behavior.
But you also have a responsibility as well to, in fact, ensure that when we do this education, it's not to blame them, condemn them, vilify them. It's also how we package them. But also as adults, we have a responsibility where we live, that our behavior, what are things that, what is it that we do in front of them, so that, because more often than not, the kids, they resemble, or in fact, they display what you and I are doing as adults. So you'd find that their behavior is in fact a manifestation of what happens in their homes. So it's very critical that we come back and say, as society, parents, we have a direct role as to how we behave, the things we say, the things we do, either in front of them, or even, behind their back, they could hear these things and come and replay or do them, thinking that it's okay, I can do this because, it's done in the home or it's done in society.
I'm so glad you touched on, that the children are watching and how we act. Do you think, because when I was young, we used to play house, so children will see how mommy and daddy act and, they play house. Do you think that when children play house, it plants a seed? Because, I'm mommy, you're daddy, you're the baby. Then when people go to sleep, then mommy and daddy go somewhere private to do whatever in terms of the children. Does it plant that seed? You would see this is how you relate with a girl.
Children are in a journey of developing. And they're also in a journey where they need to feel that they are in control. They need to feel that they know what they're doing. So while they see and they think it's appropriate, they would want to play I want to be a good, I want to be like my father, my uncle, I want to be like that man, I want to be like that woman. And if we do not address that at an earlier age, they grow up thinking it's normal, it's okay, I can get away with it. I can play with the little girl, and if no one find us, tomorrow I can go back and do it. And then when they grow, it's out of control. So we need to be very careful as adults. We need to be we need to watch out what's happening around, what's happening with our children, what kind of games, what kind of jokes are we making with the children, what kind of language are we using in front of our children, what are we affirming as normal and not normal.
But what do you think is the solution? Are we looking after our children, and what do we need to do in order to make sure this stops?
I'm happy you raised this. We do not invest sufficiently on raising the boy child.
Okay.
And it's important to do this in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And the issue in South Africa is that we can't talk about it enough. We don't have enough time to unpack it. But the bottom line is we need to pull together as parents, as members of the community, look after our boys, look after our girls equally so that we can be able to raise them properly. So if you'd like to carry on talking about this issue, which I'm sure you do, please comment on our Facebook page, Talk SA, or you can follow me on Twitter at Aya Mbama. Until we see you again next week, Haribueng, let's keep talking SA. As Talk SA, we say no more violence. No means no. Let's talk SA and put a stop to raping.
Hold them low. It's upside down. Please, yeah.
Rape is not a woman's problem, it's a human problem. Men need to speak. It is the worst violation of the human spirit.
No to rape. O rape e kuhlola. Loko u rape wahlola.
Madoda, kumele sondle, sivikele, sithande abantu besifazane. Rape is not fun. Period.
Se lebale ho kopana le rona Facebookung kapa re romelle maikutlo a lona ho 33120.